Welcome to Final Fantasy Weekly. I'm Drew Kreisman.
And I'm Ira Kreisman.
And on this episode, we continue our conversation on Final Fantasy VIII. When last we left our heroes, we had concluded Disc 2 with a bit of a cliffhanger in the middle of the game. We're probably a little past the midway. As much as this is Disc 2 or the end of Disc 2 of a 4-disc game, we're probably a bit more than halfway through the story. But still, it was a pretty remarkable moment where we fought Cypher and Edea. It was built as this big last battle. We defeat both of them, but instead of that just being it, all of a sudden Edea remembers the orphanage and having raised all of these kids, and something weird happened with Rinoa where she ended up zombie kissing Cypher and sending him off in a daze, and then the screen went black and Squall just wondered, what's going on? Much like we all would, and that's a conversation we'll continue to have throughout this episode about the ambiguity and the sort of, the purposeful mystery at almost every turn of this story. Our heroes don't know what's going on, and so often the player doesn't know what's going on. And that can be various degrees of really cool and fun and interesting, or kind of frustrating at times. Squall once again wakes up in the infirmary, kind of a fun running theme. I just remember at the very beginning of the game.
More fun for us. More fun for us than him, I imagine.
Sure. And essentially is immediately told by Quistis that they need to go to Edea's house at once. And that Matron is back at the orphanage. And so you head there, and you get this weird, kind of immediate, awkward apology from Headmaster Cid, who, admits to a kind of strange cowardice by saying that he talks big, but in times of trouble he runs away, and that he felt like he was in a no-win situation because he didn't want his seeds to die, but he didn't want his wife to die, and so he just hid from the situation. It's weird, man. It's kind of... And then he just basically says, I hope you forgive me, I hope you forgive her. And doesn't explain anything just yet. Waits for her to do it.
I feel like, and we kind of talked about this before, but I feel like this was never Sid's plan. He did not marry Edea thinking, I'm going to be the headmaster of a military academy one day. No, sure. He had some other plan.
Right.
It was only once he realized, or once Edea realized what might become of her, that this was her plan. And he's like, okay, well, I guess this is what I'm doing with my life now. But he never wanted to have to be the heroic, confident character. He is kind of a... Coward's not quite the right word.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it's fair to tell people who don't want to be in a military conflict that they're therefore cowards. I don't like that.
Right.
But it is kind of... I do feel like the man's doing his best. And his big success is having raised children to be heroes, even though he himself doesn't have that capacity.
Yeah, it's definitely a character trait that, again, I think could be more deeply explored in a remake or a retelling, because I do think at times he does come off as just a bit cowardly, though I agree with your assessment. I think there could be more moments to explore that, yes, this is his version of courage, which was to raise these kids and put them in this situation and know that they could succeed. But yeah, it's just a little bit clunkily done. That said, one of the things I really love about this, to talk about one of the major pros of the strangeness and the mystery surrounding this story, is this turn that we get here now, where for this whole time, Edea has been built up as the big bad of the game. And if you've played Final Fantasies 6 and 7, the two that came right before this, we're used to a Kefka or a Sephiroth being introduced very early in the story and gaining more and more power and eventually being, the villain. And so that at this moment, all of a sudden, Edea is back to being mom.
Right. Right,
And
because
it's really cool.
I agree. I like it. I do think it parallels Golbez and his brother Cecil a little bit.
Sure.
But it's not like Gestal was, I mean, I guess he was kind of Terra's adoptive father in a horrifying way.
Sure.
But yeah, we often have seen, so President Shinra is not the big last bad guy.
Sure. Right. Yes.
So we're used to the whomever is being portrayed or built up as the big bad turns out not to be. But when I first played this, I thought it was President Delig of Galbadia, who now gets the Gestal treatment and kicked aside.
Sure.
And now Adia is going to be built up as the big bag or big bad. And then it happens again. No, actually, Adia, something else is going on.
Yeah. Though they take it a step further in this one, and we'll get to that in a moment, because first we get some much needed exposition through dialogue. And as much as this is a big, long-winded speech, and maybe we could have known some of this stuff earlier, I do think it actually is to the story's benefit and makes sense that she would drop all of this information here.
Right. Yeah, she's the one who knows what's going on. And like I was just saying, she's the one who decided we need to do something about what's about to happen.
Yeah.
Or has already happened, or is currently happening. Who even knows?
Right.
Right.
So first she praises them for their ability in battle, which I think is pretty funny. Like they're all just kind of still hyper obsessed with this group of child soldiers they've raised, which is a little strange. But then she says, I have been possessed all this time. I was at the mercy of sorceress Ultimecia. That's how I pronounce it. I've heard some people say Ultimecia, Ultimecia, depending on how you, but whatever, Ultimecia. I don't know. But yeah,
fair enough. We can each pronounce it our own way.
That's right.
Yeah, so I have already got a question.
Okay.
What does all this time mean?
Sure.
I don't think we really get into that because she wasn't possessed when she was raising them.
Sure.
So when did the possession happen? It doesn't really matter. In fact, there are a lot of things in this story that raise more questions for me that ultimately don't matter to the narrative of Squall and his friends going on their character arc.
Right.
But I'm going to occasionally bring them up anyway because it makes me curious.
Yeah. Which I think is fair. I just prefer sometimes that those things don't get fleshed out. I also interpret all this time to literally just mean since the beginning of the video game.
Sure.
That's almost a little bit for the player there, but yeah, I know what you mean.
It's kind of like the War of the Lion is the backdrop to everything and Ramza's story is what we're focused on. It's a similar idea. And I agree, sometimes it's more interesting or more fun to speculate than to know. But I have so many questions.
Sure. And these days, we might get a DLC, and people frown so much on that practice. But I'm going through the 16 DLC right now, and it's a perfect example of how you can deepen the lore and answer some of these types of questions without really, as you said, altering the main story, because it's not about that. But we could have a DLC that explains in much more detail the history of the sorceresses. Absolutely. So she says Ultimecia is a sorceress from the future.
Wait, what?
In case this wasn't weird enough for you.
Yeah. So this is another one. Again, I'm not sure it's the biggest thing, but it's another big thing that drops all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Ultimecia is from the future?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Many generations ahead of our time. Okay. And her objective, we're told, is to find Ellone. Because Ellone has this mysterious power.
Right. Okay. So Ellone is the only one who has this special power to send people to the past. Sort of.
Right.
Okay.
So then we're told, that Ultimecia is filled with anger and hate, and so Adia couldn't let Ultimecia get a hold of Ellone. And so that all she could do was surrender her own soul to Ultimecia and lose control of her mind. Now, you've brought up several times before how this game has, in several subtle ways and several not so subtle ways, made it abundantly clear that not everyone in the story always has full control of their own mind or even their own body. And so as much as this might feel like a totally weird thing that comes out of nowhere, I actually think this is one of the ones where they laid the groundwork quite nicely, and it doesn't feel quite so strange to have this concept of, oh, okay, Ultimecia is possessing the minds and bodies of sorceresses from her own past in our present. As weird as that is to say.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've seen Rinoa possessed a few times, right? Like,
right.
Especially right before the parade, I think is the
right.
first time we really see it. And I have wondered several times what Cypher's motivation in all this is, and I think the possessions suggest to me that he's not totally in control of his motivation. I think there are several things that this
right.
explanation helps to give context
yes.
to, even though we're not going to get all the, well, what is this sorceress?
Right.
What do you mean she can go back in time to possess people?
Right. She can, is what we get here, right? And
right.
that
right.
at least gives, like you said, a lot more explanation and context for a lot of things that have been going on. And then Adia says, so, I plan to make a stand this time, but if it doesn't work, I might have to fight you all again. But I need your support in all of this. And she's not done dropping information bombs on us yet. Because then she asks if we have ever heard of sorceress Adele, who was the ruler of Esthar during the Sorceress War. Again, that's the DLC I want, the Sorceress War, right?
Right. But we kind of get some of that from Laguna.
Right.
Because we've heard of, we've participated to some degree in the Sorceress War right. of 18 years ago. So we know a little bit about that, and more importantly, we know the aftermath as far as Laguna is concerned.
Right.
So yeah, I love that now we are getting some context for the dream world.
Right.
And so knowing her name now, I can't remember if her name was dropped before, but knowing that the Sorceress of Esthar is the one who's being brought up now, and obviously there's going to be a connection to Adia,
right, and
a connection to Ultimecia far in the future, and potentially Ellone.
Right. So then we get an immediate, pragmatic goal, too, because we're also not just getting a lore dump here and not just getting context for everything that's going on. We have to have our next goal in mind. And Adia says she believes that the sorceress Ultimecia plans to use this sorceress Adele, who is out there somewhere, and no one really knows where. That Ultimecia released Adia so that she can use the body of Adele, who will not hesitate to go along with all of this selfish desires, she calls them.
All right, so Adele, who was defeated but not killed
right.
18 years ago,
right,
is still out there somewhere and has the potential to be possessed by Ultimecia, but wasn't during the last Sorceress War?
Right.
Again, these are the world-building questions I have that aren't important necessarily to the story of these characters,
right?
But I would still like something on. Also, because Ultimecia cannot possess Ellone, because it would seem to me that, I want that power, I'll just possess Ellone and then I'll have that power. But Ellone apparently is not a sorceress or cannot be possessed. Is it only sorceresses who can be possessed by Ultimecia? Is that specific to Ultimecia's power?
That's always been my interpretation. I guess it's not necessarily said outright, but that's always been my understanding of how her power works, is that, she can work through the sorceresses, and that maybe technically Ellone is not a sorceress. Her power is somehow unique and different, whereas there is this other line of young women, or women, I suppose, at any age. It tends to be that they're found out when they're young, and we're about to learn a little bit more about that, right? Have whatever, the sorceress gene, I don't know, is it a midichlorian count or whatever it is, but they're predisposed, right, to have the potential to be sorceress, even if they don't ultimately. And that means they have the potential to be possessed by Ultimecia from the future. But it also makes it sound as though, I think one of the things that it makes clear, if not the specifics of it, is that there's a limit to Ultimecia's power. She can't possess more than two or more than one sorceress at a time.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? She had to let go of Adia's body in order to go after Adele's. And
right.
She can't just possess whomever she wants on the face of the earth. Otherwise she would basically be an undefeatable god at that point.
and Adele, and Adia had to some degree, let it happen.
Yeah,
so
she
at some
she
point,
surrenders her body, or something. Yeah, she surrenders to it.
So had she been fighting it off in the past, and let it go this time, or maybe she's been possessed in the past, and like woke up somewhere she didn't mean to or didn't think she was going to be. Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And why would Ultimecia choose Adia specifically? Is it because of this time and place? Is it because of Adia's specific powers to impale young people on giant icicles?
Sure.
What choices were made there? Yeah, I want DLC Ultimecia and the Sorceress Wars.
Right. Explaining all of that. The way Arden got a DLC. Right. Explaining the villain and his motivations that weren't nearly as clear in the game. Though, again, I liked in 15 the way it wasn't super clear, even right to the very end. But so back to your point about sort of narrowing in on what the story is really about, Squall has this hilarious thought where he says, I've heard enough. I understand that listening to what Matron has to say is important, but Rinoa... Right, which is, we talked about that, as you mentioned, with Final Fantasy Tactics. It's like, this huge war is important, but Alma, I care about this one person.
Right.
And as it turns out, they're related. They're linked here. So this is nice.
I like this because so far, every time Rinoa has been in trouble and he tried to think of the greater good, somebody else had to say, all right, but also this person who we all love dearly and you most of all needs our help.
It's hanging by the edge of a cliff, dude.
Right. And now he is the one who's saying, I get that, but also this person whom I love dearly, even though I won't say it even to myself, is in trouble. What are we going to do about that?
Right. And so Adia, has no idea who Rinoa is. And she goes, the girl in the light blue? I remember her vaguely. What happened to her?
I wonder how much Adia remembers from when she's possessed.
Yeah.
Again, doesn't matter ultimately, but Ultimecia. But I do wonder.
Yeah. Yeah. Like she's trapped in there or something. Because she seems to have some memories of it. And then they have this weird moment where Sid just goes, did Rinoa die? Squall's like, what the heck, man? So as Squall is starting to freak out about what's happened to Rinoa, but nobody there seems to know, Sid reminds him that he's got to get back to the garden and tell everybody about the outcome of the battle, and that, back to that point of, it's not just Rinoa. Everyone fought, and you're the leader now. So now he has to get pulled back in that direction, just constantly back and forth between those two things. And so he punches a wall, like any good teenager who's frustrated would do, I guess.
I actually really like that Squall punches a wall here. Not because I think that's ever an appropriate response to an outburst of emotion, but because he has yet to really have much of an outburst of emotion. At least now he's acknowledging his feelings. Right. And it's not like he hauled off and clocked Sid.
Right.
So at least there's that. But I really appreciate that he's allowing himself to feel now.
Yes. So Adia recenters the conversation on the big picture, reminding us that Ultimecia is trying to find Ellone. She needs to use Ellone's power of sending one's consciousness into the past.
Right. And again, why? Why would anybody do that? And as we established an episode or two ago, because she must not be happy with the present as it is.
Right. And this is another one of those interesting moments where everybody is having a big, important conversation, and Squall is retreating into himself and not paying attention and thinking about Rinoa. So as Zell and Irvin are asking questions about Ultimecia, Squall is thinking things like, we had a lot of arguments at first, but in time, things began to change. And then there's this really, really interesting moment where Zell asks of Ultimecia, what is she going to do in the past? And before Edea can answer, Squall thinks to himself, you were looking at me. You smiled when our eyes met.
Aww. So, one of the visually interesting things about this is that, going back to your silent movie analogy, the screen, the image fades away. And we're getting text boxes on top of each other. It's kind of hard to tell who's talking,
right?
But we know who's thinking.
Right.
We know whose thoughts we're in.
Right.
You were looking at me. You smiled when our eyes met. Did you ever know?
Yeah. Yeah. Right. It's a great little rearrangement and paraphrasing of the song that we will eventually get to. But it's also an accurate reflection, memory of that ballroom the night that they met when he graduated, and she came looking for someone else but called him the best looking guy there and pulled him out onto the dance floor. You smiled at me when our eyes met.
It's also, not to get too far ahead here, but when we eventually experience the craziness we're about to experience at the end, this is one of the things that we see again. We've already had a bunch of events, past, future, present, sort of slammed together in the introduction.
Yeah.
And so this is just sort of a reminder of one of the important things to Squall, because he's the one who's going to experience the craziness.
Yeah, from a meta standpoint, this is a brilliant moment in the story to have Squall have this internal monologue, because Zell has just asked this really important question about Ultimecia and the past. And the answer that we're going to get is one of the more famous phrases to come out of this game, and is going to be one of these incredibly weird concepts that is difficult to understand and unique to this game and really, really cool. But right before Edea can utter the phrase time compression, Squall's thinking about this cornerstone moment from his own past of just being smiled at when he saw this girl. And so they're talking about time compression, and Squall is thinking about this singular moment that he's just now realizing meant something very deeply to him.
I got to say, in a lot of ways, this is how my brain works. We've drawn comparisons between ourselves and Squall already.
Sure.
But there's a part of me that is always off on a non sequitur. Like, we're doing this right now.
Yeah.
Right? We're having this conversation. We're recording for a podcast. This is what I'm focused on. But also, Mom's going to come over for lunch here in a few hours.
Right.
And my head's there. My head's also about, maybe we're also going to do a podcast about Secret of Nim. But also, I'm thinking about work in a couple of weeks. Where I'm on winter break, going back to work here in a week or so. There's all these other things that are also, I've got a song running through my head. It's the final countdown because New Year's Day, right? Like that's how my brain works. So sometimes something very important can be happening, and I am unable to not also think about the way my wife smiles.
Sure.
And so that's one of the reasons I love Squall so much.
As I mentioned, Edea utters this phrase, time compression, which I feel like is not a complete answer to the question, what is Ultimecia going to do in the past?
Right.
And to his credit, Zell simply turns her statement into a question. time compression? Squall is still not paying attention. I'm thinking about how Renoa's smile made him feel calm and tranquil. I really like this little bit as a Final Fantasy nerd where Edea just refers to it as time magic.
Right, yeah. We wear the tall pointy hats.
Yeah,
time magic.
Exactly. So Ultimecia is a time mage. Okay, that makes it make a little more sense. And then she says, past, present, and future get compressed. What?
Yeah, I don't know.
I understand all of those words, and my brain definitely tries to make sense of that. And I feel like halfway succeeds.
Right. And this is definitely one of those things I'm okay with not getting right now.
Yeah.
Like, I want to know more about the sorceresses and where they come from and how you inherit powers, and, you know, which powers have this person inherited, and can there be more than one at once? Obviously there can be, because Edea and Adele are existing at the same time. But yeah, like, what I think the way this story is told is deliberately nobody knows all the pieces. And I'm sometimes more okay with it than others, and this point in particular, just the phrase time compression is so compelling. I'm okay with not entirely knowing what that means in the moment.
Yeah. And to their credit, both Zell and Irvin give voice to that thought. Like, well, what happens to the world when you do that, says Zell. Why would you do that? Irvin says, I can't even imagine a world where time is compressed. Squall is still not paying attention. He's just thinking to himself, Renoa, give me another chance. I can be a good boy, I promise. And then his friends realize he's not paying attention and call him out.
Thanks for calling me out in front of the teacher, everybody.
Yeah. And I love it too, because as Squall snaps out of it, he goes right back into pure logic brain, leader math thinking straight down the line. Like, what? No, I got everything that was important. Basically, all we have to do is stop Ultimecia from getting a hold of Ellone.
See, I was listening.
Right. Quist is like, well, yes, but... And he goes, whatever, we're going back to the garden. Let everybody know. And then there's this interesting little back and forth between Irvin and Squall, where Irvin's like, hey, man, you know, we're worried about Renoa, too, you know? And Squall, like, starts like he's maybe going to get in a fight with him. Like, he says, well, then why don't you... And then he just says, forget it. Again, back to he's starting to have emotional outbursts now, which is maybe not good that they're outbursts, but good that he's having emotions on the outside of himself. So we've seen transition back inside the garden, and Squall is basically wrapping up his report to the garden, letting everybody know that we're going after Ellone. I believe she is on one of the she's on that White Seed ship. We're going to go out and look for it. Be prepared for battle.
I think it's important to note that Sid is not here.
Yeah.
Sid remains at the orphanage with Edea. He has basically given over total command of Balam Garden to Squall Leonhardt.
Yeah. So Squall also notes over the intercom that Sorceress Edea is probably, he says, not our enemy anymore. So that's good. And then he goes straight down to the infirmary to visit Renoa and has a very sads. he bees a very sads.
He does. I want to point out, so he's talking out loud to her.
Yeah.
You know, isn't there anything I can do? You were so full of life, so on and so forth. When mostly he talks inside his own head.
Right.
But the thing he does say inside his own head is, this is like talking to a wall.
Yeah.
Which has got to be a deliberate callback to him telling Quistis,
go talk to a wall.
Right. Yeah. There's no use talking to me about this. You may as well go talk to a wall.
And it's kind of funny because it's an inverse of, you know, as much as it's sad because Renoa's unconscious.
Right.
Squall is often the one who's being talked at and not giving any response.
Right.
And now he's the one talking to someone, and all he wants her to do. In fact, he finishes this whole sad moment by saying, just call out my name. Just wants her to say something, when before it was, won't this girl just shut up? She's always talking. And now he just wants her to say something. It's really good. Yeah. And then he collapses at her bedside and falls unconscious. And when Squall Leonhardt falls unconscious in Final Fantasy VIII, it's time to dream about Laguna.
Yeah. Laguna's cool. He's always doing cool things that make total sense.
Always make total sense. I love that we randomly catch up with this guy at the most just whatever times of his life. Of just
what even is going on here?
This is wild. This whole sequence. They're on the set of a movie. Apparently there are movies in this world. People film.
Sure. Because there used to be TV, and then there wasn't for 20 years.
Sure, right.
This is a made-for-TV movie, definitely.
Oh, yeah. Clearly, I mean, the budget is not great on this thing. Hiring former soldiers as actors.
Well, he wants to be a writer, you see.
Right.
He wants to be a writer, so he's slumming it as an actor as opposed to the other way around.
Right. Exactly. Right. The band is back together. We've got all three, Laguna, Kiros, and Ward. So the boys are back in town.
So in my playthrough, which was just yesterday, Ward wasn't there, and I don't know why.
Oh, what did you do? Did you get Ward? Well, no.
I don't think so. I think there's like if you pick up a certain item or fail to pick up a certain item, he appears here or doesn't.
Oh.
I looked it up, but I can't remember what it was exactly.
Didn't remember that part, but yeah. Well, in my playthrough, Ward is here, but he also, remember, he doesn't speak anymore.
Right, because his throat was injured.
Right. And they're having this whole comedy bit routine, the kind of Three Stooges thing going on, where Laguna's talking about not being cut out to be an actor, but obviously he's super excited.
Right, yeah. And this whole sequence seems to be, once they've got him in costume, he's wearing like a sort of a cheesy knight costume.
Right.
And he's got a fake gunblade, I think.
Right.
But he's fighting the sorceress, or he's protecting the sorceress. It's not clear what the plot of this movie is.
No.
Fair enough, given everything we've just said.
Right. And then there's this whole weird thing with the director, like, not knowing what's going on and apparently needing someone to play the dragon right now. Like, they didn't have that figured out already.
And is it weird to you that they're shooting a movie, thank you, that they're shooting a movie about the sorceress, or potentially the sorceress war, that just ended not that long ago in Laguna's time?
Right. You know, I did actually have that exact thought, but then I remembered, like, not to get grim or whatever, but like how quickly after 9/11 people started making 9/11 movies and stuff. And I was like, which I thought was weird then too. So, you know, depending on the subject matter, dramatizing the very recent past can be pretty dicey, pretty touchy, you know, but it does happen. So that's right. We've also got to add this to that list. I'll see if I keep this in the episode, but to our list of stories within stories.
Story within a story. Yeah.
You know, the opera of Final Fantasy VI, Loveless, and Final Fantasy VII. I had forgotten about that. I don't know what the name of this movie is, and I'm not sure it ever gets made, considering what happens next. But it is interesting that they're trying to create fiction, like you said, based on in-world recent history. So the director ends up looping Kiros and Ward into playing the dragon. Apparently it's like a two-man, but sort of Godzilla-style monster suit that has to be operated from the inside with a couple of people. I am assuming, filling in some blanks here.
Right.
Oh, never mind. He does say the name of the film. Fantastic. I'll make note of it. Scene 12, this is, of Death of the Sorceress.
Oh, there you go then. All right.
the cheesy dialogue. Oh, Sir Knight, save me from the wicked dragon. And Laguna is all super nervous. I'll save you from the dragon. And darn it, I'm so bad at this. What's with this weird gunblade? I haven't used one of these since training. Kind of like this. And he just starts swinging the sword around. It's awful and hilarious. I love that the director calls out too, hey, not bad, I'll just put in some voiceovers. Okay, bring on the dragon. Like, I'm not going to use any of what you guys said, but... and then the large red dragon comes walking down the mountain path, and boy, does that thing look real. Like, all of a sudden, you're like, wow, I guess the entire budget of this thing went into the dragon. Director's going, man, it looks fantastic.
Fantastic. Well done.
Way to go, guys. And then even Laguna is not sure at first. And he's like, man, Kiros and Ward are taking this very seriously. This dragon looks like the real thing. It's coming right at me. And then, it's a real dragon is what happens.
It's a real dragon.
That's what happens.
I will say that I'd forgotten. We made so much hay out of the numerous and largely annoying mini games in Final Fantasy VII.
Sure.
The one where you have to fight the soldier hanging off the jetpack thingy was more difficult than it needed to be. I had to do it 3 or 4 times.
Sure.
This one's not difficult, but it is just kind of annoying.
Yeah. It's not great. Very basic, kind of clunky. Ultimately, you fight the dragon. Kiros and Ward show up and like, hey, we're not the dragon. And Laguna's like, yeah, I figured that out.
Thanks, guys.
Cool.
So they're retreating from the dragon. Apparently there are a lot of dragons. Laguna says, they just keep coming. We're out of here. And we're on this mountainside. And in the background, there's the big moon again. Remember, we started that introduction with the reflection of the moon and the going across the water. The moon is giant in the background, but it's very, very dim. Yeah. And I'm certain I did not see it the first time, but I saw it in this most recent playthrough. And there's a structure with like a red glowing ball atop it or something.
Yeah.
None of which is explained, all of which is in the background, all of which is very subtle.
Yeah.
For all that I'm going to complain from time to time about wanting to know more about this or that, the subtle cues in this game are often brilliant.
Yeah.
We've talked about this before in Final Fantasy. They give you the end right there at the beginning.
Yeah.
Almost every time.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. So we'll get back into what all that is and why it's important later. But for now, we fade to black. And we get a disembodied voice.
Yeah.
I can't disconnect. And Squall says, or thinks, what is this connect thing?
Connect? What you talking about?
Is that you, Squall? Yeah. Connect is just what I call it. It's when I use my special power. Oh, I know. I must be asleep. That's why I can't control it. I'm sorry, Squall. Just let me use your spirit a little while longer. So who do you suppose that is, Drew?
Yeah, through context clues, I think it's pretty easy to figure out that that's Ellone if you've been paying close attention. But
right,
yeah.
So we get another scene with Laguna, and he's at the orphanage that we've seen Squall at, and Adia is here, not looking like Sorceress Adia, but rather like the matron.
Right.
And she says, if I may ask, what happened to this Ellone? Laguna says she was kidnapped by Esthar soldiers.
Oh.
I've been traveling, trying all I can to get inside Esthar, but...
Oh.
And Adia says, so they were looking for a successor to the Esthar sorceress Adele.
Yeah.
So does that mean they know that Ellone is a sorceress or can be a sorceress?
Yeah.
Or maybe...
They suspect.
Right.
At the very least.
Right. Because she's got a special power. And maybe do you get your powers early, but then you can be a successor to another sorceress and gain their powers as well?
Yeah.
Again, unclear. I really want to know. Doesn't matter that much.
It does kind of remind me of the potentiality of like men who can channel, right, in Wheel of Time.
Sure.
It's like there's a certain group of people who you've got to be particularly aware of because they wield a power.
So Adia asks, is she your daughter?
Yeah. In my rewrite, Laguna just answers yes.
Right. Yeah.
I get what they mean by his no, but she's just so cute and I wish I could hear her voice. And It's kind of his way of saying they I don't know if they have adoption or she's, whatever, but just say yes. How about that?
Right.
How about we just go with yes here?
That would be my choice as well. And I wish I could hear her voice, because that parallels what Squall was saying to Rinoa, and then Squall says it in his own head.
Right.
And Laguna responds to Squall saying that. He has like a physical response, and Adia says, "Is something the matter?" No, just the fairies.
The fairies. Oh, that's so cool and weird. I love that so much, that he can feel their presence. But I also love, too, the way Squall has softened a lot more in the dream world, where you remember at the very beginning, he just could not stomach Laguna getting nervous at the bar with Julia.
Right, yeah.
And
what a loser.
Oh, my God, this guy. I dreamt I was a moron, right?
Right.
And now he completely understands. Laguna just wants to hear this person's voice, and Squall is exactly right there at his moment in time. And so rather than recoiling at this outpouring of pretty sappy emotion, I just want to hear a person's voice, rather than going, ugh, what a loser, Squall's response is, I feel exactly the same way. He's already grown so much. I do love the character growth of Squall Leonhardt in this story. It's phenomenal.
Yes, absolutely. We're about to get another couple bombshells, as it were. Ellone explains her power to some degree.
Yeah.
So she and Squall are just talking inside Squall's head now.
I know, this is so great.
I love it. And she says, "You cannot change the past. I just found that out. When I was kidnapped, Uncle Laguna went on a journey to find me." So, clear confirmation that she is the same Ellone, the little girl,
right,
in the dream world.
Getting a straighter line of time, as it were.
So she just found out you can't change the past.
Right.
But she can view the past. Okay. So he went on a journey to find me, but because he did, Uncle Laguna wasn't able to be by Rain's side when she died.
Oh, what? But they were going to be happy.
I know. He fell for the lounge singer.
Yeah.
And it didn't work out. She married General Caraway.
Yeah.
And then he fell for Rain, and he wasn't there when she died.
Yeah.
Rain wanted to show Laguna her newborn baby.
Oh, come on.
And if it's Rain's baby, who do you suppose the father is?
No.
Rain kept calling out for Laguna. So no matter what, I wanted Laguna to stay in the village, but it didn't work. So she was trying to go back in time and have Laguna stay in the village with Rain rather than come looking for her. That's what I'm getting out of this.
Yes.
Because she wasn't there.
Right.
She's gone at this point. She's been kidnapped. But it didn't work. I can no longer make it back to that moment. And also, I can only send you inside someone I've met before. So what this says to me is she knows her mother, Rain, is dead.
Yeah.
But she wasn't there. And this is Final Fantasy. So I hold out some hope.
Oh.
So moms die, yes. But also, like, you got to be careful about trusting people who weren't there to tell you you got to be careful about people telling you the truth, or that they would even know the truth in this game, because most people don't know anything about what's going on.
Right.
So it's dicey at best. But apparently her mom died while she was kidnapped, and Uncle Laguna was out looking for her.
Right.
But she only knows that secondhand.
Right.
And also, she tried to change the past, which now she knows she can't do. And also, she's got a little brother.
Yeah.
And gosh, I wonder who that is.
Right. I will say, and maybe it's just because we're doing it for, this is probably the 5th or 6th time I've played this game, and I've watched other people play through it, and it's all so much clearer to me now. But I really don't remember, connecting those dots at this moment in the game until it's really all spelled out for us a little bit later on. I really was blown away at the later revelation. When we go through it line by line the way we have been, I feel like, yeah, okay, that's clear. You just laid it all out right there. But still, even with the next bit of dialogue or not dialogue, thoughtologue.
Right. Sure. Inner monologue. Let's go with that.
Yeah. After all of that from Ellone, Squall thinks, sis, Ellone, I'm like that should have given it away right there. But
right. But we've already had confirmation from the other orphans that they all loved Ellone.
Right, sure.
She was a big sister to them all. So eventually she does make it to Adia's orphanage.
Right.
That's another thing that this story does. It's confusing because everything's out of order.
Right. But that's definitely on purpose. To draw a parallel to, I'm not going to ruin it, I'm not going to spoil anything, I'm not going to get specific, but if anyone played Final Fantasy XVI, I'll just say the Bahamut segment, that whole thing is told out of order on purpose.
Right.
To make it confusing, for the specific reason that our main characters don't know what's going on. They don't know why they are in the middle of doing what they're doing. And I think it does an incredibly effective job at making us, the player, the audience, have that same feeling.
Right.
And so I think probably I would give Final Fantasy VIII 70 to 80% of the time. I think it works in that way where we're confused because Squall is confused, because Rinoa is confused, because even Adia and Cid are confused. There are times I think, again, as we've pointed out, it could have been clearer, maybe should have been clearer, because all of these other purposeful misdirections are good enough. I think that's the way to put a more positive spin on it, is that you've got enough phenomenal mystery going on here.
Sure.
Enough strange
and we all want to know the answer.
Yes. That being a little more clear on some of these other things might help us feel grounded in something a little more, because this stuff is just so cool and weird. And then it does all fit together, at least this family stuff, so satisfyingly well, and tied together with the song. So Squall starts to wake up back in the infirmary and reiterates inside his head that he would very much like to hear Rinoa's voice. And then says out loud, apparently wasn't listening very carefully, because he says, I can see if we go back in time and maybe we can even change things.
No, can't change things.
Ellone just
assuming Ellone knows. Again, not everybody knows what's going on or what you can and can't do.
Right. So Squall gets it in his head that if he finds Ellone on the White Seed ship, she can send him back in time to the moment when Rinoa went into the coma, which she just said she can't do that, but Squall is desperate at this moment. He's thinking with his emotions and not with his mathematical, logical brain that was dividing people up by their ID numbers, and stuff like that.
Right.
So he decides that Adia might know the whereabouts of the ship. So he's going to go talk to her so that he can find Ellone. That's it for this episode. Thank you for listening, and thank you to everyone who's reached out to us. Feel free to let us know what we missed, got wrong, or should have mentioned, and of course keep following along with us as we continue our conversation on Final Fantasy VIII.